Well, this is it. Pretty much the most authentic looking and feeling World War I first-person shooter that you can play today. Battlefield 1 has been a huge title, really stirred up a lot of interest in the Great War and research, especially on my part, but also among the rest of the community. But the game doesn't exactly represent what the majority of the fighting was like. If you want to know what that was like, you can check out Verdun. And I'm doing this video today because there's an amazing one-day sale off of chrono.gg/levelcap where you can pick up the game for $8. And basically, if you buy the game through this affiliate link, I'll get a small cutback. The website works directly with the developer, so it's not a key reselling website. It helps the game producers, it helps me, it helps the website. The link for that is also in the video description. Now, the game itself covers not only the Battle of Verdun, but some of the battles that took place before and after this specific battle from the years 1914 to 1918. And in fact, the developers are coming out with sort of an expansion. It's a standalone expansion called Tannenberg, and that should be coming out later this year. I'm actually kind of excited to see what that's like, because it's supposed to cover the Eastern Front, where there was a lot less trench fighting and more mobility. So it's going to cover a lot of the Russian forces and stuff like that. So actually, funny enough, when Battlefield 1 comes out with its sort of Russian DLC, we should be seeing a Tannenberg standalone content for this game. So I think this is a really cool title. I've covered it before, I've talked about it. I do like the game. I think it's neat that somebody went ahead and made a game that does a much more realistic portrayal of World War I combat. It has a lot of hardcore and realistic elements to it. For example, this bolt action rifle is pretty much a one-shot kill no matter what. I don't think I ever shot anybody with this weapon and didn't see them die from it. So the damage model is very strict, very severe. Reloads and rate of fires are slow. There are some of the weapons that you would see in like Battlefield 1, like trench shotguns and machine guns, and even flamethrowers if you're lucky enough to get one of those classes. Now, the way that this game sort of balances out the complement of weaponry to make it more realistic is that teams are broken up into squads of 4, and only some of those squads will get some of the special units like snipers with actual scopes on them. The scope sniper rifles in this game are incredibly good, and the players who get them generally top the scoreboard if they know what they're doing. But to balance it out so that there aren't just tons and tons of scope snipers, they basically just limit the amount per team, and it gives you a much more realistic complement. Most players will be running standard bolt action rifles, and if you play enough, you can upgrade your classes, and you can usually unlock a sidearm if you get enough class points. It actually doesn't take very long, so you would likely be running with a bolt action rifle with iron sights and then a sidearm. Now, gas shelling and gas masks are also a big part of the game, a realistic part. Squad leaders often have the ability to call in airstrikes, whether it's artillery or gas strikes, and that can actually really affect certain parts of the trenches significantly, because the gas not only will choke people up, but you'll have to put on your gas mask. It's also a great visual obstruction, and it allows the enemy team to generally push a trench more effectively. So it's pretty fun when you see the gas come in on one part of the trench. There's a good chance that you're going to be hit with an infantry assault pretty quickly after that. The trench combat itself is pretty fierce and unforgiving. If you get a good flank off, you can wipe out an entire squad on your own. Pistols do a lot of damage, and if you're just good with a bolt action rifle, you can easily get 1 kill per shot and wipe out a whole squad on your own. It's fun. Grenades do an insane amount of damage. The blast radius is crazy, so if you are playing a grenadier and you can get close enough to a trench, chances are you can get a kill with it. Now, planes are incorporated to the game. From time to time, you'll see a biplane fly overhead, and that means you're probably being scouted, or maybe your commander is scouting the enemy trench. And basically, this is a way for spotting where the enemy location is. And it's cool because it allows you to decide where you want to push on the trenches. If there's a lot of resistance on one part of the trench, push for the part with the least resistance, and then work your way through the trench network. As far as I know, there's no tanks in the game right now. In terms of realistically portraying World War I, the fact that you never really see tanks, occasionally a broken down metal husk on the battlefield, is probably the most realistic portrayal of World War I in a video game, as we do often see tanks in like Battlefield 1, tanks fighting other tanks. There were really very few tank battles during the war, and even tank-on-tank action was only recorded in one single instance of all World War I. So the fact that they don't have them in the game isn't really a knock against the realism, but it would be kind of cool to see tanks make an appearance at some point, especially since the devs are trying to do a very realistic portrayal of World War I. I would be interested to see just how immobile and clunky the tanks actually were. Now, the game runs on the Unity engine. The graphics aren't stellar by any means, but they do a fine job of rendering the sort of muted tones of World War I. There's a good amount of map variety, and a considerable more of map variety than when this game first launched. The devs have done a lot of free updates, which includes new soldiers, new weapons, and new maps along the way. Now, I like Verdun a lot. It'll definitely appeal to people who are more interested in authentic battles rather than extremely fast video game-like battles. That being said, the game does a good job of making the combat fun and engaging. You have respawns in it. Usually doesn't take too long before you see some action. If you get good and want to be aggressive, you can see action pretty frequently. And as for the sale going on today, it's really hard to argue with $8 for a solid game that's really going to give you the most realistic portrayal of World War combat that's available in a video game since basically ever. So anyway, if you haven't heard about Verdun, now you have. If you're interested in historically accurate battlefields and fairly realistic portrayals of World War I combat, I highly recommend checking out this game. You probably won't regret it. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Again, if you're interested in picking up the game, it's chrono.gg/levelcap, and the link is in the video description. I'll see you guys next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.